December 1944. Snow lay heavy on the Ardennes, crushing the firs and muffling every sound. Only marching boots and the faint rattle of distant automatics broke the hush. High in the iced branches, German snipers peered through fogged optics, hunting as they had for years, one shot, one man, then vanish into the winter gray. Then they would fade back into the haze, but across the front, something unnerving was taking shape. From smashed hamlets and splintered fence lines, American patrols carried a weapon that neither cracked like a Garand nor barked like a Thompson. It breathed a low, sinister hiss that chilled men who thought the night belonged to them. The M3 submachine gun, soon dubbed the grease gun by those who lugged it into combat, was never meant to be pretty. Stamped metal parts, a bare-bones frame, and a look so stark it might pass for a forgotten shop tool. Yet it was no ordinary piece of kit. In steady hands, it became a quiet killer. Firing .45 caliber rounds at close range, it gave U.S. infantry a new edge across the war. Torn towns and fields of Europe, German officers had long taught their troops to sneer at American factory-line ingenuity as crude overproduction. What caught them off guard was a gun that embraced exactly that, simplicity, low cost, and utility, and turned it into fear. It was cheap to build, costing a fraction of a respected Thompson's price. It could be made fast with fewer hours and less specialized tooling, so more of them reached the front in record time. When German scouts first heard its uneven, coughing note in the dark, they assumed it was a faulty piece. But when men dropped it 20 paces under the weight of heavy .45 slugs, they learned quickly. The grease gun didn't ask for finesse, only that it run anywhere for anyone who squeezed the trigger. American GIs grasped its strengths early. Compared to the bulkier Thompson, the M3's shorter size and slower rate of fire made it easier to control. Steady even through thick gloves under winter skies. Through shattered streets, Aachen, Metz, Bastogne, the grease gun became an extension of a soldier's will. To the sniper, peering from a cracked church tower, it spelled trouble. For once, night was no longer their private domain. The M3's story reached back past the frozen woods to Detroit's plants, and the workbenches of designers facing a simple problem. By 1942, U.S. commanders knew the Thompson, for all its punch, was too expensive and labor-intensive. Its finely machined parts tied up skilled hands, and every hour spent on one meant fewer weapons for men overseas. The War Department wanted something cheaper, faster, simpler to produce without losing stopping power. The answer was bold in its plainness. Build a gun for quantity, not show. General Motors' Inland Division won the contract, and the result looked nothing like the polished arms of earlier decades. The M3 came off presses and welders, not jeweled. Machinery. Whole sections were stamped from sheet steel, bent and welded to shape. It was purpose-built, a statement of American industry. Get a gun to every soldier who needs one now. In trials, it proved the point. The grease gun's .45 ACP hit as hard as the Thompson, but in a lighter package. Its slow cadence, just over 400 rounds a minute, lagged far behind the Thompson. That, it turned out, was a virtue. Where the Thompson tended to climb under long bursts, the M3 stayed on line, measured, predictable, and accurate amid urban chaos. A man could fire short, controlled strings instead of wasting ammo in wild sprays. By 1943, crates of them were crossing the Atlantic, marked without ceremony in the blunt language of wartime shipping. Troops laughed at the plain looks It did resemble a maintenance tool more than a gun. Tube body, spindly wire stock, something borrowed from a mechanic's kit. The nickname stuck, but so did respect. In flooded trenches, shattered barns, and the black corners of ruined blocks, the M3 proved itself. Germans who mocked American dependence on mass output now faced the consequences up close. By the winter of 1944, the grease gun was no experiment. It was a trusted partner in the savage, close-in fights that defined Europe. Tank crews praised it most. Its compact shape fit the tight spaces of Shermans and half-tracks where every inch mattered. A Thompson could snag at a hatch or eat precious room. The M3 stowed cleanly, ready the instant a lid opened. Men who once relied on pistols when bailing out now had real firepower at arm's length. Infantry learned the same lesson house to house. In Normandy's hedgerows, the wreckage of Saint-Lô, and the defended towns of Alsace, the M3's steady bursts counted. A team clearing a cellar could trust its point man to deliver precise fire without burning through magazines or fighting jams. German troops used to owning close quarters with the MP40 found the edge dulled by the M3's heavy 45s. Thin doors and hastily built barricades meant little. More unsettling to the snipers was how quietly it spread fear. Unlike a grand sharp crack, the M3's muted note blended into the battle's noise. A marksman who gave away his perch could expect a stream of 45 to rake beams and loopholes, tearing away cover and forcing him out. Captured German reports began mentioning the American oil can weapon as a growing threat in city fights. The design, however, had flaws. The early side-mounted charging lever could snap under abuse. Troops cursed the flimsy ejection port cover that wouldn't always stay shut. Even so, the M3's great strength was that it kept running under fire. Mud, rain, and hard frost rarely stopped it. American supply lines kept parts flowing, a fact that gnawed at German staff officers. Any engineering shortfall was swallowed by sheer output. In the end, what counted was simple. When a GI pressed the trigger, the gun kept throwing heavy rounds until the job was done. The Battle of the Bulge would lock in the M3's place in war and winter. When the Germans punched through the Ardennes, U.S. units found themselves cut off and outnumbered around Bastogne. The 101st Airborne dug in, waiting for help that might not come. In sub-zero cold and snow-choked foxholes, the M3 became vital. Its deliberate cadence let paratroopers save ammo and still throw bursts that checked enemy moves. Where rifles struggled in thick woods, grease guns spoke with authority. For snipers used to bullying scattered positions, things changed the moment they revealed a hide. American teams no longer relied only on long guns to deal with them. You could aim a grease gun at a wall, and in seconds mortar, wood, and windows came apart under 45 fire. Interrogations of captured Wehrmacht troops showed rising fear of American submachine guns, especially at night when vision was poor. One prisoner called it a hacking ghost in the dark, methodical in rhythm, deadly in effect. The M3's supply advantage mattered too. Because it was cheap and quick to make, huge numbers still reached the line despite the snarled logistics of late 1944. German factories, already hammered by bombing and starved of materials, simply couldn't match the pace. Their men carried beautifully made weapons, but not enough of them to stem the flow of stamped steel from American plants. In Bastogne's streets and frozen villages, where fights ran room to room, the grease gun earned a hard name. Troops liked that the wire stock folded to snake through tight spaces, then snapped out for a steadier hold. Everything about it seemed built for knife-range fighting in Europe, where predator and prey were separated by meters, not fields. To Americans who carried it, the grease gun stopped being a stopgap or a budget choice. It meant staying alive. To the Germans, it was proof the industrial giant had found yet another way to tilt the fight. By spring 1945, as U.S. armies pushed deeper into Germany, the grease gun's place in history was set. It rode with tankers across the Rhine, with infantry clearing the ruined plants of the Ruhr, and with airborne units moving through towns still smoking from days of shelling. Wherever combat squeezed into corridors, works, and cellars, the M3 was the weapon men reached for without thinking. It wasn't made for parades or posters. It belonged to rubble, dust, and air thick with fumes. German files taken in those last weeks show grudging acceptance. Marksmen who once trusted a single shot to freeze a patrol began noting the futility of firing into positions that a quick answer from the grease gun could strip, window frames gone, beams shredded. It wasn't a match for a scoped rifle in fine accuracy, but accuracy wasn't the point anymore. Fast, sustained fire decided things. A sniper in an upstairs room could stall a squad for minutes. A grease gun could erase that floor in seconds. What set the M3 apart wasn't perfection. It was a creed. It showed a nation's will to arm every soldier well enough to finish the mission. Each stamped receiver, each folding stock, each loaded magazine testified that victory was forged not just at the front, but in the plants run by ordinary citizens, homemakers, farmhands, machine operators. Many were new to the work, yet they built a tool that shaped the closest kind of fighting. In its plainness lay its strength. When the guns finally fell silent in May, veterans spoke of the grease gun with rough affection. It rattled in armored hulls, clacked against helmets and crowded trucks, and thumped onto trench floors as men reloaded in the dark. Still, it delivered. Cheap, steady, deadly. To those who carried it, it proved that triumph can live not in what's elegant or complex, but in what simply works and won't quit. To those who faced it, it was the last echo of a war they could no longer win, a reminder that in the ruins of Europe, the night now belonged to